What's up, Thrashers, and welcome back once again to the Thrash Maniac 99 YouTube channel, and I am back with yet another album review, and today, well, we are talking about probably the most anticipated album of the year, at least in my personal opinion, because, well, this band just fucking kicks ass, and they're one of my all-time favorite bands. I am here to talk about the latest offering from Testament, BELLUM. This comes out on October 10th on Nuclear Blast Records. Album number 13 for this band. And, well, it's been 5 years, more than 5 years, since the last one, Titans of Creation, which is an awesome album. After all, this band has been on a roll really ever since The Gathering in 1999. Every album we've had since has just been banger after banger after banger, or as WWE wrestler Sheamus goes, banger after banger after banger after banger after banger after banger. I could just keep doing that all day until you guys get annoyed. But you get the idea. Awesome albums for a while now. Now, of course, in between Titans of Creation and this album, we've had a couple lineup changes. First, Gene Hoglan left the band in, I believe it was 2022, to focus primarily on trying to get Dark Angel up and running, which I'm not going to go into that any further than I have to. And then they had Dave Lombardo come back for about a year, a little over a year, to do some live shows, but we were all kind of hoping he was going to stick around for a studio album again, like The Gathering, but he's busy with other projects, so we get youngster Chris Dovas, formerly of Seven Spires, coming in to be the new drummer, which is interesting how he came from Seven Spires, because now my buddy Dylan Gowan plays for Seven Spires, so it's an interesting trade-off. But Chris Dovas is in the band, and I'm going to go ahead and say his drum performance, he's definitely qualified for Testament. Like, he hits all the tropes of what this band needs in terms of drums. Nice groove pockets, some awesome triplet rhythms, thrashy rhythms, and blast beats. There's a good amount of blast beats on this album. Now, I am going to go out on a limb right now and say I think this album might be their best since Formation of Damnation. Like, this album, I'm going to spoil it, this is phenomenal right here. We kick things off with For the Love of Pain, and immediately killer drum intro into just absolutely furious riffing and awesome bass work. I mean, the guitarists that we still have to this day in the band, Eric Peterson, Alex Skolnick, that's a duo of thrash royalty right there. And then Steve DiGiorgio, one of the top 5 greatest bass players in metal history, in my personal opinion. He proves on this album to all the people that doubted him being in Testament, being quote-unquote wasted. I think this album should shut up those skeptics, because there are quite a few moments across the board on this album where he shines in terms of the bass work. Like, here on this track, you get great bass melodies that kind of add a little bit of extra flavor to the song, but the song itself, I would say the opening 2 tracks, and I'll talk about the other one in a moment, but they almost feel closer to death thrash to a degree, because they're so fast and filled to the brim with nasty tremolo machine gun riffing that definitely feels more towards death metal at times. But also, Chuck Billy's doing primarily death roars on this opening track. Like, there's not really his, like, signature thrash delivery on this track. He's doing more death roars, and they are killer on here. Even some little atonal melodies, a doomy breakdown, and then suddenly we take a hard turn into almost black metal territory with how the tremolos get a little bit colder, a little icier, and even Eric doing his, like, black metal vocals, which I love his black metal vocals on Testament tracks. Like, just killer right out of the gate. And then, of course, some really cool, like, lead harmony at the end. Not a true blues solo, just a lead harmony at the end to kind of add a little bit of extra zing. But then we get to the first single of the album, Infanticide AI, which is the shortest track of the album at about 3.5 minutes. I would say one of the most brutal songs Testament has ever written. Like, You still get plenty of melody and harmony on here. I mean, it starts off with dark melody and harmony, but the majority of the song is, again, like a death thrash song, like death metal tremolos and blast beats on top of that ferocious thrash that we know Testament is capable of writing. Big chorus hook. I mean, the song itself is basically a giant fuck you to the whole AI craze and music and other forms. But killer solo from Alex Skolnick, even if it was short, but my god, this song still packs a fucking punch. Shadow People, cool little like tribal drum intro, and for the most part the song kind of goes into like mid-tempo riffing, like kind of like classic heavy metal a little bit, but it's still got some groove to it. But I also do love how you still get some tremolo and blast showing up after a while, and even like a really cool twangy melody to, again, add a little more variety to the guitars. But then we get to the longest track of the album at 7.5 minutes, Meant to Be, which I guess you could call it a ballad. I think of it as sounds like more of like a dirge, and beautiful acoustic play right out of the gate, and then it just gets into these like soaring, somber melodies. And Chuck Billy's clean vocals, I've always been a fan of his clean vocals. Yeah, they're a little gruff, but that's what makes them unique. And even the chorus on here, maybe the biggest chorus on the entire album, as you also get some strings to add to the somber darkness of the song. If you ask me, I feel like this song is like part 3 of a series of songs they've done. Like Return to Serenity from The Ritual, I would say would be the first part. Cold Embrace from Dark Roots of Earth would be part 2. And then Meant to Be is part 3. Like all 3 of those songs are similar in terms of the mood, the somber atmosphere, the darkness. It just all fits together into like a nice trilogy of songs. And then we go into High Noon to conclude the first half of the album, and it's largely triplet chugs, swings, groove. Again, you get awesome death roars, but you still get like cool tremolo harmonies, and it does get thrashy towards the end whenever the final solo comes in. Man, this song just has a lot of leads going on. Then again, with the lead work on a Testament album, you're bound to get phenomenal work, whether it's Alex doing leads or now even Eric doing leads. It's just a great duo of guitars, of course, when it comes to Testament, and this album certainly is no different. The second half of the album is very much more streamlined in terms of songwriting and the lengths. Like, we start getting shorter songs, not shorter than Infanticide AI, but like average length about 4.5 minutes. Witch Hunt, this one, again, kind of just feels like a death thrash song. Like, you get like death metal tremolos on top of that thrashy rhythm, roars and blast beats, but you get back to like those thrashy machine gun riffs. Very intense overall, and even some of the lyrics were actually co-written by Steve Zetrozusa, formerly of Exodus. But then towards the end, you get this one riff with clean vocals on top, and dare I say, kind of reminded me of a Dio riff, which was really cool. And then lots of great lead trade-offs between Alex and Eric. But then we get to Nature of the Beast, which you notice a trend lately with Testament albums where they'll do a song that is inspired by more like 70s or 80s hard rock, classic metal. Nature of the Beast, a lot of the riffs on here, even though it's on top of a triplet swing, kind of remind me of Van Halen a little bit. Like, this feels like a swinging Van Halen track, but with that thrash aggression. And of course, Chuck's signature vocals really shine on this track in a big way. And dare I say, it's one of the catchiest songs of the album. Like, the guitar work is, it's very like stick in your head kind of thing. Room 117, which I don't know what that's a reference to. But the song itself is mostly, once again, like mid-tempo, classic metal, groove, all together into one awesome track. And a bass melody comes in here yet again. Again, showing to everybody that thought that Steve Giorgio was being, quote, wasted. Stop with that crap. And stop saying people are wasted in bands unless it's actually true. Wow. I don't know where that came from, but I apologize. Anyways, then we go into Havana Syndrome. And this one, I actually love how it builds up, like the guitars pretty much building up the atmosphere and the mood of the song. And for the most part, it's like a battle-driven, thrashy gallop of a track, but there's even more melody coming in, and it's soaring. Like, I don't know if I would necessarily call this like a power thrash song. I would just say it's just like a war-driven, battlefield-esque thrash song that just gallops along like classic metal and early power metal, but not really call it power thrash. But then we get to the final track, the title track, the second longest track at 6.5 minutes. This song perfectly encapsulates the entire album. Like, you get chugs and grooves, some atonal harmonies, killer gallops with awesome bass work. Dare I say, a lot of this kind of reminded me of the song Henchman Ride off of Formation of Damnation, but it does get very thrashy, and it gets back to like the almost death metal moments with the tremolo and blasts. Again, killer lead work, harmonies, and beautiful clean melody at the very end to kind of just remind you that, hey, this is still kind of a dark album because of the themes that's going on here, and it's mostly like the themes on here are mostly about like how the modern society, it's like we keep getting divided because of bullshit, and this album's basically like a wake-up call to like just stop the bickering, stop the bullshit, and just get along, which is really what we want at the end of the day in the world, is for everybody to just get along and just accept people who they are, whether you're on one side of the political spectrum or the other. It's just like, just learn to just get along with each other. That's kind of like what I'm getting thematically on a lot of these songs. It's like, we need to course correct the world now before it just falls apart even further than it already has. Now, production-wise, this is the first album since Demonic in 1997 that has not been touched by Andy Sneap, which I know people shit on Andy Sneap, which I don't personally understand, because who cares if it's universal across every band he touches in terms of production. If it sounds good, that's all that matters. But you can definitely tell this is a different sounding album in terms of the production. It was produced by Juan Ortega, who has produced the band in recent years, despite having, Andy Sneap mix. So he comes back to produce this album, but the mixing is done by Jens Bogren, which Jens Bogren's been busy this year, and this might be one of Jens's best mixes of the year, bar none. He perfectly captures the band's sound into this unbelievable album. And of course, songwriting, this is up there amongst some of the best songwriting they've done in a long time. Like, I'm not saying like the last few albums like Titans of Creation, Brotherhood, The Snake, and Dark Roots of Earth were lacking. Far from it. Those three albums are kick-ass. But I think this is, in my personal opinion, like I brought up earlier, songcraft, the mood, everything about it, I think this is the best Testament album we have had since the Formation of Damnation. Overall, I have nothing to complain about at all with this album. Not even minor nitpicks whatsoever. Everything about this album is pretty much flawless, in my personal opinion. This is yet another 5 out of 5, and I'm gonna probably say this could possibly be my favorite album of the year, probably. I don't know, it's going to be tough to really decipher what's going to be my number one for album of the year territory. This could be a contender for that. But then again, you got others like Warbringer, Black Braid, Innumerable Forms, and hell, even some 4.5s that could go up to 5 territory that could eclipse some of this. But still, unbelievable album. If you're a fan of Testament, you're going to dig this and maybe have the same opinion as I do. Please give this album a listen. This is unbelievable. But of course, those are just my opinions. What did you guys think? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. But until next time, thank you for watching. Keep your horns high and your dreams wet.